So, you guys know that I do mob grazing, which is to me the only really sustainable grazing method there is. It is, in my opinion, the best grazing method in the world. That's because nature has done that for the last millennia on its own, and it has worked perfectly. If you want to know more what mob grazing and rotational grazing really is, check out some of my previous videos. But today I want to talk about a different aspect of it, which is so far the only negative that I have really discovered with mob grazing, and that is that I, in my system, with the land that I have, sometimes have to use a brush cutter to do some stuff. And the reason for that is I live in an area that has a lot of forest. We have a lot of trees. When we moved to this farm, when my dad bought this farm, there were a lot of trees all over the pastures that we have cleared up. This is not the kind of ground that you would typically till or plow, which we don't want to do anyway. But we have to take down a lot of trees, and there's certain kinds of trees that when you cut them down, lots of suckers come up. So we have the aspen tree here, where we have cut down a lot of big aspen trees in the past, and then the next year you have all these suckers come up, unless you kill the tree by taking off the bark a year before you want to cut it down, if you can plan ahead that far. So we have all these suckers come up. They grow super fast. They grow like 1.5 meters in a year, and the animals eat them. They love them. But the thing is, with the rotational grazing, with the mob grazing, we remove them daily. We just give them as much grass as they eat in a day, then we move them. If they go on there, they eat pretty much all the leaves off those suckers, but then they get moved on. Then the land will heal and rest during a time till they come on there again, till it has regrown. And the same thing with the grass. When it regrows, the same thing happens to these suckers. They obviously lost some strength by having all the leaves eaten off, but they will regrow. Now, if you would permanently graze an area, these trees would run out of strength, these suckers, because the animals would like bite off the leaves as soon as they would come. But in the rotational grazing, you have this problem that the leaves grow back and these suckers have time to recover and get back to strength. And so I have noticed that with the rotational grazing, it's incredible for boosting your pastures production. It's incredible for getting rid of weeds and just improving the quality and quantity of your pasture. But when you have suckers, underbrush, bushes that grow, you need to get rid of them with a brush cutter. That's what we have to do today. So let's go. This is my brush cutter that is now, let's see here, 10 years old, I think. It hasn't been used or started in, I don't know how long, probably a year about. And it just started super easy. Very happy with it. It has heat here in the handle. Very good product. So I think the conclusion is, if you buy property or have property that needs to be cleared from brush, put a fence around it, put some browsers in there. Like goats or Highland cattle are actually a very good cattle breed, that they're really good browsers. And then I would leave them on there permanently a small number for a season and then start mob grazing the next year. So I'm done now. I cleared about half a hectare of pasture from suckers that came up after trees we cut down last year. And yeah, I have a little more to go, but I have lower back issues, so I have to wait a little bit. But you know, I was for the longest time, I was under the impression, and it's a total lie, it's bogus, that you can't improve pastures. And partially I thought that because of my teachers when I went to farming school. They kind of, you know, they always made it sound like, hey, the kind of soil you have on your farm you can change. So when you buy a farm, look into what kind of soil it is you have. You know, if it's clay or sand or what have you, look into that. And then the other thing is, you know, if you get you know, the EU has a EU-wide system where farmers get money for farming because otherwise they can't stay in business. We don't get that money. I don't get that money, but other farmers are completely dependent upon that. And if you get money for your pastures, you are not allowed to add any outside input to your pastures. You're not allowed to put fertilizer on there. You're not allowed to put even chicken manure. You're not even allowed to feed your cattle winter feed when they walk on the pasture, so they add that extra manure. And you know, I don't understand at all really why that is. So I was under the impression, you know, that, oh man, we have, like, you know, our area here is known for having poor land and poor pastures. So I was under the impression, oh, you know, I kind of get the short end of the stick. So we actually had a field trip here from my class. My whole class went here. When I went to school, a teacher came in. They were like, oh yeah, you have some poor pastures here. Well, now our pastures are so much more drought resistant. They are so much greener, better growth. We have grazed them in this you know, in this drought here that has been so severe this year. We've grazed them 2 times, we'll graze them another time. Some areas we have grazed 3 times already, we'll graze them a 4th time. And we have all done that just by pasture management. Rotating cows daily, putting chickens on there behind them, and we haven't put any tractor hours or fertilizers on there except for chicken feed and chicken manure, but they take a lot off the pasture as well. So it doesn't matter if you have clay soil or if you have sandy soil, you can just improve your pastures because the permaculture method, you will just build topsoil on top of whatever soil you have, and with every centimeter or millimeter of organic matter, it'll hold more moisture, it'll loosen up clay soil, and it'll just become, you know, there's no limit to what you can do. So that's really the way it is and what we're experiencing here. And this is, like I said, the only time, you know, when you do these daily moves, you really have to sometimes get rid of some of these suckers or some stuff that the cows definitely don't eat, but that gets less and less for every year and every time. So hope you enjoyed this update. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye, guys.